The free agent signing of DeMar DeRozan by the Chicago Bulls was voted as the worst move of the NBA offseason, but since then, DeMar DeRozan has emerged as a true MVP candidate with his level of play, which might be a bit of a contrast to his time with the Toronto Raptors. So in today's video, we try to answer the question if this season is different for DeMar DeRozan, especially when we get to the playoffs. Let's get into it. Hey everybody, welcome to Amateur Hour Sports. If you like the NBA and specifically if you like the Toronto Raptors, then you may just love the channel. So if you enjoy what you see from today's video, then consider subscribing and helping me on my road to 8,000 subscribers. I would really appreciate it. You get to see more videos like this at least 4 times a week. But today we are spreading out just some more general NBA topic because we want to talk about DeMar DeRozan. We want to answer the question, is this season different for DeMar DeRozan? And, is this his best season? And is it going to be different when we get to the playoffs? Because typically, DeMar DeRozan is known for being somebody who is a playoff choker. There's no real way of sugarcoating it. DeMar DeRozan seems to just regress when it comes to playoff time. That is how it has been throughout his entire career, really. That name just doesn't just come from nowhere. So we want to address if that real notion is true about DeMar DeRozan, and we want to assess if this is really his best season so far in the NBA, because it can't really be a different season if it's not his best season. And to do that, we need to go back to a little bit of his Toronto Raptors days, because, he was great for the Spurs. I thought he should have been an all-star last season, but I don't think any of his seasons with the San Antonio Spurs live up to any of the seasons with the Raptors, specifically the 2016-17 season when he was on the All-NBA third team, or the 2017-2018 season, his last season with the Raptors, when he was on the All-NBA second team. So let's go into a little bit of the stats of those seasons and compare them to what we see this season currently from the Chicago Bulls version of DeMar DeRozan. I find like the easiest way to go through quickly a player's season, you got to look at some key stats like the points, the rebounds, the assists, his percentages, field goal percentage, and three-point percentage. For DeMar DeRozan, the three-point percentage maybe isn't as important because he's not driven a lot by three-point shooting, but I think it is something to know. Also, something I would like to note, it is mid-range field goal percentages, because that is very enlightening to this discussion. So let's go into the 2016-2017 season. This is where DeMar DeRozan was on the All-NBA third team. I would say this is his best season so far in the NBA. We're not counting the one against the Bulls yet. But best season with the Raptors, easily this one for me, because he averaged over 27 points per game with just under 47% shooting from the field. Let's talk about the three-point percentage. It was about 27%. DeMar DeRozan usually isn't a great three-point shooter, so we're not going to count that too much. He also doesn't take a ton of those three-point attempts, but the mid-range statistics from this season, also something to note, he shot about 41% from mid-range, which is right about the NBA average. NBA average hovers between 40 and 42, so 41 is right in the middle. Let's go to his All-NBA second team season, the season after that, 17-18, his final season with the Raptors before getting traded. This was also a great season. He had 23 points per game, almost 46% shooting again, and 31% shooting from three. So percentages I thought were a little bit better, and he shot above average in mid-range at about 42.5%. So decent numbers in these season. Let's talk about the Chicago Bulls season this year, why it just might be even better. So points per game, 25.7, not quite up to his best mark, but the percentages are much better. 49% shooting from the field and almost 35% shooting from three. The mid-range numbers as well have grown a lot to 47.6%. That is way above the NBA average for that. So I think that this statistically is on course to be his best season in the NBA. So how is he better now? How is he doing better with the Chicago Bulls than he was doing with the Raptors, where he really had the green light to do whatever he wanted? And I think the green light, that just may have been the problem for DeMar DeRozan. I think coaching may come into play, because playing with the Raptors with Dwayne Casey, it was really frustrating watching Dwayne Casey coach, especially in the playoffs. I know he won Coach of the Year in his last season with the Raptors, but watching them in the playoffs, like the game was just played straight through DeRozan, ISO ball. It was ugly. It didn't work. Raptors fans knew it didn't work, but we just kept on using it. DeMar DeRozan had the green light to do whatever he wanted. DeMar DeRozan wanted to shoot in mid-range. He was a really good player, but In playoff situations where that half-court setting becomes a lot more prominent, your best players get a lot tighter defense, it was difficult for DeMar to execute in the playoffs. But since playing for Greg Popovich, who is one of the best coaches of all time, there's an argument for being the best. Playing with Greg Popovich, he's learned so many things. He's learned to be more patient. He's learned how to be more of a veteran, a smarter player. And this is where DeMar DeRozan learned how to play more in a team dynamic. And I think that has really helped him, because when he's gone to the Chicago Bulls and he has a lot more of that green light offensively, well, we're seeing what he can do and how he can take his game to the next level. He's way more efficient, especially because of those mid-range numbers. And the three-point shooting has been developing over the course of his career. I think we are watching the best version of DeMar DeRozan, especially for the way that he can get better in the fourth quarter. He's currently the best fourth quarter player in the NBA. I think all of this combined makes him an MVP candidate. There's so many this season. Like, this is the closest MVP race, I think, in my lifetime. You've got guys like KD, Steph, Giannis, Jokic, Embiid, LeBron, all was real candidacy for the award. And I think DeRozan should be in that conversation as well. Should be an all-star starter this season for the Eastern Conference. Should be front court, but they have him listed as a guard. Anyways, should be an all-star starter for this season. So we've addressed statistically, this is the best season for DeMar DeRozan. At least in my opinion, the way I broke it down, I think it's his best season so far. Let's talk about playoffs.
Playoffs? Don't talk about it. Playoffs?
We have to talk about playoffs. That is the thing that DeMar DeRozan really hasn't shown up for yet in his career. There's been some good games, but over the course of a full series, over the course of a full playoff season, DeMar has never really been the same DeMar. Well, at least that's the notion, but do the stats back that up? Well, let's go to the 2016-17 season and 17-18 season that I was talking about prior. So 16-17 season, my opinion, his best season with the Raptors. He had that 27 point per game, was some decent shooting. Obviously, you have almost 47% shooting from the field and 27% shooting from three. So good numbers. What do the playoff numbers look like? Do they back that up? Now, I want to say before we get into it, the playoff numbers drop. But I think that playoff numbers statistically for the best players, their field goal percentages may drop as they shoot a higher volume, but like points per game and maybe some other things go up. For DeMar DeRozan, that's really not the case, because he dropped from 27 points per game down to 22.4 points per game. His field goal percentages dropped to 43% from the field and 7% from three. That is his best season, I think, with the Raptors, and he significantly fell off for that playoff season. But that's one season. Can we go to the next season as well? His last season with the Raptors. This is probably the playoff run that got him traded. Look at this. So he went from the 23 points per game to, he didn't fall, stayed at about 23 points per game, but he fell in his field goal percentages from 46% down to 44 and from 31% from three down to 29. So the fall off was nowhere near as drastic as the season before, but it was clear to see that DeMar DeRozan didn't really elevate in the playoffs and didn't really elevate the team that he was playing for. And this year, the stats are a lot better. He's a lot smarter of a player, but I am a product of evidence. My opinion is a product of evidence. Everywhere DeMar DeRozan has been as it comes to playoffs, we have not yet to see him rise to the occasion. And that reigns true for even the play-in game that he had with the San Antonio Spurs last season. Didn't rise up, actually was not very good in that game as well. But this season might just be different. I think a lot of those playoff struggles, you can put a little bit on DeRozan, but again, I think a lot of that is going to come down to the coaching of Dwayne Casey, who played a really ugly style of basketball in the playoffs and the mid-range game, which DeMar DeRozan really thrived in. Like, that was his game, the mid-range game. DeMar DeRozan is like 10 years late. Like, that era of DeRozan, the Raptors era of DeRozan, 10 years prior would have been like the best player in the league, but the league was changing. Dwayne Casey did not change the way the team played with the times. Obviously, come playoff time, three-pointers drop. The amount of three-pointers taken drop when it gets to playoffs as games slow down. So you need guys who kind of thrive in the half court. But the ISO ball just wasn't working for the Raptors, but it kept on getting pushed and pushed and pushed by Dwayne Casey. And it led to a lot of the Raptors fans just kind of asking for a little bit more from the team and a little bit more from their star, DeMar DeRozan. And when the trade happened to send DeRozan to the Spurs for Kawhi Leonard, I was happy. I thought that was a great trade. I think that I was in the vast minority in that because I think a lot of people were upset DeRozan left. And I think, there's reason for that. But I was happy because DeRozan had consistently underperformed in the playoffs for Raptors, and I didn't think we were winning a championship with DeRozan on the team. So making that trade, I'm like, wow, we just set ourselves up for a really good chance of winning the championship. Even if it doesn't happen, I'm happy we went for it. And at least now we know, even if we don't win a championship, now we know that it didn't work anyway. We at least reached and went for it because we tried with DeRozan for so long. We ended up winning a championship, so it was all worth it in the end. But it was a big risk, but I think it was a risk worth taking because we can assess DeMar DeRozan's career from when he first entered the playoffs. The season he first entered the playoffs, regular season compared to playoffs, there's a big drop-off. In his career, he is a very good player, obviously. 23 points per game, 4.8 rebounds, 4.9 assists, 47% shooting from the field, just under 30% shooting from three. The true shooting at 55%. Those are good numbers. The playoffs on the right side, it's just a completely different story for DeRozan here with 22 points per game and every other stat. I mean, every stat, including points per game, just drops off. The rebounds, the assists, the field goal percentage drops to 42, the three-point percentage drops to 23, and the true shooting percentage plummets down to 50. There is a real correlation between the playoffs, how DeRozan just kind of fades off a little bit. This season, will it be different? DeMar DeRozan is a different player, in my opinion. The way he's shooting the three, the way he rises up in the fourth quarter. He's always been a clutch player to me in the regular season, but the way he's rising up in the fourth quarter is really different. But sadly, unfortunately, I can't say that he's just going to get better. I can't just claim here that he's going to rise up for this playoff season because he's just never really done it before. So until I see that happen, I can't sit here and tell you that I think this is going to be a different season to playoffs. Regular season DeRozan, this is different. This is the best we've ever seen him. And that gives me a little bit of hope because I want DeRozan to succeed. Believe me, I do. I want him to succeed. I like DeRozan, but until I see it happen, I can't just sit here and claim it happens. I think he set himself up for a great chance to do so. But ultimately, if I had to make a bet, I just don't quite see it happening. I think the Bulls are destined for a second round playoff exit, but I was wrong about the Bulls coming into the season. I thought they would be like a 7 or 8 seed, and they're right about the top of the Eastern Conference. So things can definitely change. But in my opinion, I see DeRozan just regressing slightly again in the playoffs. I think the Bulls are a second round exit team. Wow, so a lot covered in this video. I thought this was going to be like a 7 to 8 minute video. It's not, it's like double that, but thank you so much for watching. If you're still here, I really hope you thought this video was entertaining and enjoyable. And if you're watching any video that deserves a like, make sure you give a like on the video to show your support to the channel. Let's hit 150 likes on this video. And if you want to see more videos like this, usually we talk about the Raptors specifically. Today, I wanted to talk about DeMar DeRozan, but if you enjoyed, please give a sub to the channel. Help us on a road to 8,000 subscribers and enjoy 4+ videos a week with Amateur Hour Sports. We'll see you again next time for another video.